living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
According to the FBI, scams are widespread and on the rise. In fact, last year, older Americans lost $1.7 billion to scammers. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Colleen Roylance. Today we'll talk about how you can identify red flags so that you keep yourself and your savings safe. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joining us today is Logan Hickel with the Better Business Bureau. Logan, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
Let's talk scams. And in fact, let's start with some background information about phone scams and how they target older adults.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me on the show. Really happy to be here. So phone scams specifically, those can be categorized as any transaction or discussion that's started via a phone. And phone scams don't mean just talking to someone on a phone. These types of scams also include those scams perpetrated via a text message on a phone. So there's phone scams and there's multiple scam types within that happen on a phone. Now, consumers being contacted via phone continues to be the most common contact method reported to the BBB scam tracker. That was according to our 2021 scam tracker risk report. And in that same risk report, something interesting, we saw fewer people reporting losing money when targeted by phone than those targeted by website and social media. However, the median dollar loss for those scams perpetrated via phone was higher than website and social media. So fewer people being targeted, but losing more money than other contact methods. And we also saw that ages 65 plus were less likely to report losing money when targeted via social media, email, and websites than other age groups, but they were more likely to report losing money when targeted by phone. So that's important to note. Phone scam issues are an issue for that age group. And lastly, when it comes to what they're trying to achieve, these scams are really typically trying to get that personal information, whether that's your full name. They may only have your first name or only your last name. They may try to get your address, your social security number, your payment information, any type of financial information, or importantly, also, they may be asking for that Medicaid information.
Oh, that's really interesting. So they really do target older adults. And is there a particular reason that makes older adults more susceptible to scams?
Yeah, so older individuals can be a target for these bad actors, as typically those older individuals have money saved up from working throughout their life. So bad actors see them as a better target because they have more money that they can get from older individuals. So that's important to note. However, an interesting aspect that we uncovered in our scam tracker risk report that I mentioned earlier, and that's the report from last March, was that in 2021, younger individuals were falling victim more often, but older individuals were seeing a higher median dollar loss. So it's almost like flipping that script. We see, typically you hear about older individuals being targeted and falling victim. Well, we're actually seeing younger individuals falling victim. They're just losing a little bit less money every time they do fall victim. Now, sometimes these individuals can be targeted as they may not be up to speed on these latest payment methods or outreach initiatives. So if these older individuals at home, if they're told that this is how the transaction happens nowadays, well, they have a higher chance of going along with that interaction because they don't know.
Yeah, that does make sense. And it's interesting that younger folks are being targeted. I'm always curious, how do they get the phone numbers in the first place?
Yeah, so phone numbers really can be found on a multitude of websites in today's world. A quick Google search can surface current phone numbers and past numbers that may or may not still be in service. And these bad actors also get phone numbers and other personal information from data breaches, where they simply get your number from a large spreadsheet-like database, along with thousands of others. It's not just your number, they're getting thousands of people at a time, and they're reaching out to all these people, seeing who's gonna fall victim.
If you have a family member who is older, maybe in the baby boomer generation, how can you talk to them and help them realize that they might be talking to a bad actor?
Yeah, so illustrating to family members how the times have changed with things like cryptocurrency and blockchain can show them that they might not be up to speed. And I know those are kind of scary words still out in the world. There's a lot of unknowns about those, but the normal person, young or old at home, isn't going to understand that. But that's the point. They need to see that there's new methods out there that they're unfamiliar with. That way they know that just because they're told something is new and that they should go along with it, maybe they should take that step back because they don't understand it. So it's almost, let's make the point that there's things out there that they don't understand. You should also never shame or blame these individuals. The vast majority of the time, almost all the time, they just don't know any better, or they're being duped very well. And that's important to know. Let's stay away from shaming or blaming these individuals because that's not going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So what are some of the common phone scams that are happening right now that we can warn people about?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is individuals being contacted by phone because they supposedly won a sweepstakes, or they can supposedly save money by switching their loan providers, or, and importantly for this time of year, someone posing as a government agency like the IRS. We see that all the time around that January, February, March, and April timeframe. Individuals reaching out to the people at home to say that they're a government agency like the IRS. It's important to note that the IRS, they're never going to call you to begin with. They're going to send you a letter in the mail first.
You know, you mentioned texts a little bit ago. We've got a little bit of time left before we break. What about those texts that say, hey, reply stop if you don't want to get this text anymore? What happens if you do reply stop?
Yeah, so if you triggered that interaction previously, so if you're the one that started that interaction, or maybe you were logging into a website and they asked for your number to add you to the subscriber list, if you recognize that number, then go ahead. You can reply stop. It'll take you off that subscriber list. Otherwise, we do not recommend replying to that message.
That's really good information because I think that's an easy one that hooks people.
It definitely is. And if you answer that phone call, or if you reply to that message, what this basically is doing is notifying that bad actor that your phone number is an active number, and that could open you up to more scams down the road. It almost puts you on a list of, hey, this is an active number, and they're willing to engage with you.
Oh, absolutely. Logan, we have to take just a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to continue talking with Logan and look at online scams and what you can do to identify the red flags there and protect yourself. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. We're still talking with Logan Hickel with the Better Business Bureau about scams. Logan, thanks again for being with us.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
So we've covered phone scams. Let's talk a little bit about online scams and what those are and perhaps how you can protect yourself there.
Sure. So an online scam comprises of anything that is facilitated through an internet connection. So this could be shopping online for a gift for someone, or maybe yourself, maybe you're treating yourself. It could be a potential love interest, maybe trying to find a new puppy for the family, or interacting with what you think is a government entity. So really, the list for online scams is endless in today's world.
You mentioned earlier that one way they hook you is saying you've won a prize or you've won a trip somewhere. And then another one that's pretty sneaky, I think, is that you have a virus on your computer. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of those scams?
Yeah, so these types of scams are definitely an issue. So one of the ones you alluded to can be generally defined as phishing. So let's define phishing scams. So to be clear, this isn't your typical phishing. It's not like you're going out to catch a fish for dinner. This phishing is spelled starting with a PH instead of an F, so PH. Phishing, and it's when a scammer essentially dangles information in front of you to lead you on. And according to the FTC, phishing is a type of online scam that targets consumers by sending them an email that appears to be from a well-known source. Maybe it's an internet service provider, a bank, or a mortgage company, for example. And it asks the consumer to provide this personal identifying information, or PII. Then a scammer uses that information to open up new accounts or invade the consumer's existing accounts. And for phishing scams, we have seen in the past where the scammer will ask the person at home some seemingly trivial questions, like say if they have kids, they then dig further into that and perhaps ask about pets and what are their names. They will continue to dig until they get all the information they need in a very cordial and unassuming manner. Travel scams are oftentimes perpetrated through an online website, and that's typically a third party acting like a legitimate travel company. So it's important when looking to book travel that you only purchase through official websites, like directly with the airlines or with the hotels, with the rental car agencies. And then lastly, fake shopping websites are a large issue today. You need to ensure that you know who you're transacting with. It's incredibly quick and easy to set up a website today. So just because a website exists, don't take that to mean that they're legitimate and an ethical business. So try to stick to those well-known shopping websites and retailers.
Yeah, they really do get pretty darn sophisticated and do have a lot of your information. If I get an email or something from my bank and they're talking to me using my first name and have a lot of information about me, how do I know? How can I identify that it's not really my bank?
Yeah, so to identify, honestly, what we suggest here at the BBB is to just reach out to your bank directly. The best bet here is to take out your debit or your credit card, whichever financial institution that they're impersonating, flip it over. On the back is going to be a phone number. You call that phone number. So don't answer their phone call when they call you. Don't reply to that text message. If it's something you're concerned about, you should go ahead and flip that card over, look at that phone number, and give them a call. That's very important. Now, sometimes what we see with emails and text messages is, say I bank at Wells Fargo, and I get an email saying that my Bank of America account has been compromised. Well, to me, that means nothing, and I can almost recognize that as a scam automatically because I don't bank at Bank of America, right? I said I have a Wells Fargo account. Well, that email and that message went out to thousands of people at once. So all they really need is those few people that do have a Bank of America account to reply to that. So just because it doesn't reply or apply to you doesn't mean it doesn't apply to anyone and that it's not affecting anyone.
Oh, interesting. Mass emails, and they're just trying to get the couple of people that they can hook. If I keep my virus protection updated, my software updated, does that help, or can they get around that as well?
Sure. So keeping your devices up to date is definitely helping in preventing these online scams. Technology companies are constantly searching for any holes in their systems, and they patch or update those systems. So it is really important that you keep your devices up to date because, there are internal teams at technology companies that look for those bugs or those holes in their systems. They also go out and contract to third parties and say, hey, I want you to poke and prod at our system and see where you can find loopholes so we can fix that. So it's incredibly important that we do keep our software up to date. I know it can be frustrating at times having to wait for that to happen, but it's going to be more frustrating if you lose any money.
What about making sure that you're on a secure network and they might be able to get in that way? How do I know I'm on a secure network and protected?
Sure. So the best way to ensure you're on a secure network is to avoid any public Wi-Fi networks. If a Wi-Fi network is not password protected, you should not be entering any login information, personal information, really any details at all while connected to that network. And the same thing goes for Wi-Fi networks at coffee shops. These networks typically have a password, but that password is most likely plastered up on a wall of the coffee shop for everyone to see and exploit. So let's just stay away from that. And then for your network at home, just make sure that there's a password on it that is not easily guessable and a password that's not 12345.
That makes sense. And I do have one more question when we come back. We're going to take a short break. but saving your financial information on websites so that you can check out easier. Let's talk about that when we come back.
Sounds great.
We'll be back in just a few minutes and continue talking with Logan so that we can protect ourselves against scams. Stay with us. Welcome back. Logan, we talked just briefly about the danger of saving your shipping information, maybe your billing information online so that you can check out when you're shopping. Can you talk to us a little bit about whether that's a good idea and what risks we're taking if we do that?
Yeah, so this can really depend on what service you're utilizing to save your payment information. If you trust the business with your information, then really that's up to you to save that information. Most businesses are honest and ethical, but not all are. So you will just want to evaluate on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not you trust that business. Personally, I like using things, for example, I use an iPhone. I like using Apple Pay to pay for things because it has all my payment information saved in Apple, but not necessarily saving it to each individual retailer or shop that I'm going to. If you start saving all your information, your payment, maybe it's your shipping information with every single retailer that you buy something with, well, then inherently your information is just in a ton of places out there. So it's always best to try to keep that locked down. But in the end, it's up to you whether you trust that individual business or not.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about identifying red flags. We use the phone all the time. How do we identify a red flag if we're on the phone?
Yeah, so first of all, if the call comes in listed as unknown, you should be wary of answering it to begin with. That's a red flag in and of itself. But if you answer the phone and hear a recorded message instead of a live person, well, that's what's called a robocall. And in most call centers, those are scams that the computer will automatically dial your phone number. And only once you pick up, does it either play the robocall message or it might pass you off the call to a representative. So if there's a delay between when you pick up and say hello to when someone responds, then that's a red flag. It's also important to always verify who you're speaking to. If someone called you without you reaching out to them, then it's always best practice to get their contact information, their company name, and their representative name, and let them know you'll call them back. You should then go do your own independent research on that company.
We talked a little bit about texts and that whole reply stop, and you mentioned that if it's not somebody that you've reached out to in the past, like you're trying to unsubscribe from something, that's a red flag. Are there other red flags when you're talking about receiving text from folks?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, you should always stay away from these unsolicited messages. But in those messages, if you're just unsure, you can look for typos in the messages. That's a huge red flag. Any legitimate company is going to have that message vetted time and time again. So if there's a typo in there, maybe 2 letters switched around, maybe there's no punctuation, there's no capitalization, that is an issue. You should also be cautious about clicking links in emails or text messages. You should instead open up your web browser and go directly to their website to find that information that they're trying to sell you on. So don't click on the link, go directly to the website yourself if you are interested in that information.
And shopping online. We talked about that a little bit, but really, how do people know if it's a legitimate online shop?
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest issues, if not the biggest issue that we see just in today's world with so much shopping happening online. So these scammers are always creating new and improved lookalike websites to trick you out of your personal information and money. And I said lookalike websites, and these websites may have a very similar URL or look nearly identical to the real website that you're searching for, which means they can be really hard to identify. And some examples of this kind of scam include DMV imposters. fake postal service websites, and even bbb.org has been imitated. Scammers have tried to look like BBB to collect information fraudulently. So maybe the website that you actually went to is BBBB, so 4bs.org, when the actual website has 3, right? So those are little tells that you need to look for. So look closely at that domain name and just make sure that you're actually on the website that you think you're on, or it might have those 2 letters swapped or it's slightly misspelled. So keep an eye on that. You can also oftentimes, what I've seen on scam websites is looking at their social media links. So oftentimes these scammers, they'll forget to switch out the social links in the footer of their website. So at the bottom, or sometimes it's in the header. So at the top or bottom. So if you click on the social icon to visit, say, their Facebook page, but it takes you to a different Facebook page, or it doesn't work at all, then that's a red flag. And finally, for online shopping, you need to pay attention to this contact information and their shop policies. Legitimate online stores should provide you with a physical address and working phone number in the contact section. And notice I said working. Try to give that phone number a call. See if somebody actually picks up. A lot of times these scam websites, they'll list a phone number, but it's not actually working. Or in one instance, we saw a phone number of 123-456-7890. So that obviously is not a correct phone number.
You really have to be diligent because some of these things are just really small red flags, like an extra B in BBB.
Exactly.
If someone calls or texts me and they want my personal information or financial information, should I always assume that it's a scam?
Yeah, so this depends on whether or not you initiated this interaction. Maybe you wanted to buy something from someone, they weren't available that day, so they called you back. If you initiated that, then okay, it's probably not a scam, but still be very careful. But if someone is calling you unprompted and asking for these things, then there's definitely that much higher chance of it being a scam. Like we mentioned before, just hang up and call the company directly yourself. So go to their website, find the number on their website and call them directly. A great example of this is the IRS. You can always hang up on government entities and then call them back directly at the number you find on their website. Make sure you do call them back though, because in case it is a legitimate call, you want to make sure you call them back and figure out what's going on.
Logan, that's all great information, and I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for watching. Join us again next week. But until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.